What was something that was good about that? अच्छा है, नदी के बारे में क्या अच्छा है?
Flowing water.
Huh? Breeze sound? Huh? Breeze is nice. Yeah.
पेड़ उसके बगल में. The trees growing.
Yeah. So there's trees by the river.
We can throw stones in it.
Yeah. It's fun to throw stones in the river, right?
Yes.
When I was a boy, I lived near a river, and in certain places you could swim in it.
Yeah.
Is there anything about rivers that, anything bad about rivers?
Alligators, crocodiles.
Alligators could be in there. Could be dangerous. You could drown. The river that I lived next to, there was other places you couldn't, because once a boy in my school drowned, and you couldn't swim in that part of the river. So there's bad things about rivers. Yeah. Floods. Rivers can flood. Absolutely. So one of the things, I'm going to read you this interesting story, but one thing I want to say is that there are many things in life like rivers, and you'll find them in books sometimes, that can be both good and bad. So if I were, I might use it with Upperger just for fun. I might say that's duality. Things can be two things at the same time. So we're going to think about that. But before we do, can you think of anything in your life that is good and bad? I mean, Jelly?
Children.
Children! It's a lot of why do you say
that?
that?
A lot of headache, but the most wonderful thing that can happen to you, I think.
And some days you think,
Oh
and
God,
some days you think,
it's too much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sweets and chocolates.
Oh yeah, well why would you say that? Sweets and
Because
chocolate.
I love eating them, but then that I put on weight after eating them. And that's
There you go. You absolutely. Anything. I mean, there's so many things that we could think of, and you could think about motorbikes, and you could think about the pollution from them, but also they get you there fast. You could think about the danger, and you could think about school, because it's hard and boring, but it's right. So there's a lot of things. Okay, so now I'm going to read you the story. There used to be on the edge of the river Ganga in Bengal a small village called Dhabri. It was a fishing village so close to the river that oil lamps lit the huts at night and would glitter like yellow streaks on the ever-moving water. In one of these huts, a little girl named Putul lived with her mother and father. I can almost imagine it. It looks beautiful. Putul did not go to school. Her father was too poor, and besides, there was no school nearby. Every morning, her father went with the other men in boats to cast fishing nets. Putul helped her mother cook, clean, and sort the catch her father brought in. Her mother would cook some of the fish into delicious curries to be eaten with rice. The rest of the time, Putul would spend with the other children of the village, making up games to play and swimming in the calm waters of the Ganga. So, it seems like the life in this village had some good things. What was a good thing in a village? You can swim and you can play, right? And then the bad things is like no school, which is also good and bad, right? I mean, so be careful. Okay, I'm stepping outside of my thing. Be careful. I'm doing this for a reason where I'm asking, because I want to make sure that we're getting that duality. But be careful about if you don't. Generally, I don't go back and say, "Oh, I'm trying to catch your understanding." Here, I'm trying to highlight this good and bad thing, right? Okay, I don't. Does that make sense? I mean, it's not. It shouldn't ever feel like a test. Okay. The river was the friend and enemy of the people of Dhabri. They swam in its waters, and it gave them fish to eat and sell. But when the monsoon came, they were afraid of its great swell. The river would become a demon. Sometimes it rained just enough to fill the river. At other times, the water spilled over the banks into the village. But the people did not move away. They could tell by looking at the rain that it would stop soon. Sometimes the river came right up to their doors, but still the villagers did not move away, the dolphins. She and her friends would see them at a distance, diving and leaping in the water, and they would shriek with delight with their antics. Some of the fishermen had small harpoons with which they would try to spear the dolphins, then bring them home to eat. But the animals were clever. They would usually slip away from the fishing boats. I'm wondering, like, why do you think the men would kill the dolphins? They're so beautiful. Why do you think that men would kill the dolphins? Come on.
Oil, fat.
So they get the
For
oil
money.
for money and food, right? Yeah, because maybe they don't always have enough to eat, or maybe they need money to be able to sell. I mean, it's a poor village, right?
Yes.
So yeah. Okay. One monsoon, it rained day after day, night after night. The mighty Ganga began to swell. The villagers prayed to their goddess Ma Kali to save them and their homes, but the water kept rising. It kept up to the huts, making chickens flee, clucking to the thatched roof of the huts. Then it came to their homes and up to the windows, and people piled up all their belongings and sat on them to keep dry. No one could cook any longer. The men sold fish in the town and brought food there for their family when they came home in the evening. Putul and her mother would sit on the high platform all day, waiting for Putul's father to return. How do you think Putul and her mother felt while they were waiting?
Anxious, scared.
Anxious, scared? Why do you think?
They don't know what will happen.
Yeah,
Anything bad can befall them.
yeah, good, because it's a scary river, right? So that's really, yeah, I think so. I mean, there's no answer in the story how they felt. So but I kind of was thinking the same thing, you know. And when I read a story, a lot of times I'll ask myself questions like, how do you think they felt? And sometimes I might know the answer or think I do, and sometimes I might not. But that's what good readers do. We ask questions about the story as we read. One afternoon, Putul sat playing with some toy animals her father had made out of straws. Her mother was sleeping. A sudden squeaking and squalling startled Putul. She looked towards the window to see two beautiful dolphins swimming right into their hut. "Look, Ma! Look!" cried Putul. "Dolphins!" Her mother awoke with a start. "I wish they would stay here until your father returns," she said. "Then he can spear them and sell them in town. They will fetch quite a price." "Oh no, Ma!" cried Putul. "We can't kill them." "This is not the time to feel sorry for animals," said her mother. "Look at us, we have no food. The rain won't stop. Should we worry about ourselves or them?" Wow. Who's right here? What do you think? Ma theek kar raha hai ya Putul? What do you think? Who thinks Putul is right? We should not kill. You think Putul is right? Yeah. Who thinks the Ma is right? Yeah. Putul, Nisha, why do you think Putul is right?
It's a living being.
Yeah, it's a being, yeah. What do you think?
खाना तो हमें बच्चों को देना ही है, तो अगर जानवर को मार के देना है तो वही करना।
Starve कर जाएंगे नहीं।
बट उसके भी तो बच्चे
जैसे
होते
उसके
हैं।
माँ ने कहा अभी घर में खाना भी नहीं है।
It sounds like both of these, they're both reasonable ideas, right? And that's, sometimes things can be more than one thing, right? This idea could be a good idea or a bad idea. Killing the dolphin is good and bad, and the mother, yeah, it sounds like that. Interesting. Do you ever disagree with somebody? Do you ever disagree with your parents?
Yes.
I mean, obviously we respect our parents, right? It's important to respect our parents, but कभी-कभी तो मन में हम कहते हैं हाँ होती है ना, right? But फिर भी तो कभी-कभी वो ठीक है, कभी-कभी, I mean, तो मतलब हाँ, interesting. So that's सोचने की बात. क्या होगा? Putul was horrified. "No, Ma," she cried again. They're so happy. Ma Kali will get angry if we kill them. You'll see," she said desperately. The dolphins stuck their heads out of the water, squeaking. They seemed to be listening. "Go away," hissed Putl, "or Baba will kill you." Her mother threw some stale cooked rice for them into the water to eat in the hopes of keeping them there. "Don't chase them away," she scolded Putl. क्या होगा? क्या करेंगे Putl? What will she do? Anyone have an idea?
भगाने के
तो
लिए
Chase them.
She was trying to.
Chase them away.
Why do you think?
To save
Because
them.
otherwise they'll scare her. Her father will kill them.
Yeah, and she likes the
It
dolphins.
doesn't matter to her that they can't eat, but she wants to save them.
So, like, Shali's making a prediction. She's predicting that she'll chase them away. And good readers make predictions all the time. And it doesn't matter if a prediction is right or wrong, as long as it's reasonable. And I think it's pretty reasonable, Shali. I think she might just scare them away. Or, shoot them. I think she'll, but I don't know. Let's see. Putl didn't listen. She was so terrified that her father would come home before the dolphins went away that she began climbing right down into the water to shoo them away. But the dolphins wouldn't go. They nuzzled her shoulders playfully. "Putl," cried her mother, "don't go into the water. Come back." But Putl wouldn't listen. She began to swim out of the window, making squeaking noises like the dolphins so they would follow her, and sure enough, they did. Ooh. Now I'm asking myself what's going to happen. I don't know, but I'm just going to keep on reading. Putl went further and further into the water, the dolphins behind her. Other villagers came out of their huts to see what was happening. Putl was afraid one of them too would try to kill the dolphins, and she swam as fast as she could. Suddenly, a strong current wound itself around her. It started to sweep her away towards the surging river. "Ma!" Putl cried out in alarm. But who could help her? Most of the strong swimmers had gone to the town to sell fish. Putl tried hard to keep her head above the water. The river was a frightening, menacing, twisting creature carrying her away from the village. She couldn't see anything. She couldn't hear anything except for the rush of the water around her. Does anyone have a prediction about what's going to happen next?
The dolphins.
Huh?
Want to beg.
She's gonna drown! Oh no! You could. She might. Right? She might not. Let's see. Then all of a sudden she heard something else. A squealing and squalling. The dolphins. They were swimming along with Putl like her two friends, one on either side. Gently, the graceful animals began to nudge her into the current in which she was caught. With their smooth, long snouts, they pushed her out of the deep water, sometimes lifting her from underneath, sometimes pressing against her shoulders. Soon, Putl found she could swim again. The water was calmer now. She had almost reached shore. People from the village were wading towards her. Putl's mother ran ahead of them and pulled her into her arms. Putl clung to her, but turned to look at the dolphins. What if the villagers caught them now? They were already far away, bobbing and bouncing, playing in the water. "See, Ma," Putl told her mother afterwards, "I only tried to save them, but they actually did save my life." "Yes," said her mother, "I will never let your father kill dolphins now." For a long time, the people of Tabri told the tale of Putl and the dolphins. From then on, no one harmed these happy, kind animals that sometimes swam into the flooded fishing villages at the edge of the great river. Would you like that story?
Yes.
Do about the food.
I guess they had to eat fish. Good question, Rashan. Right? Yeah. Interesting. So, this story has lots of big ideas in it. Big ideas, sometimes we could call it a theme, we could call it a lesson, we could call it a moral. I'm just wondering if we could think for a moment about what big ideas are in this book. Because I think there's more than one. Just think for a moment. Anyone have an idea about something?
The idea that things can be good and bad at the same time.
Wow, that's a big idea. Some things can be good and bad at the same time.
And if you help somebody, then you will always be like something good will come out of it. If you help.
So if you so we have one big idea, which is that good and bad can happen to be at the same time, and another one where if you do something nice for someone, then sometimes they might do something back for you. Those are two big ideas, yeah?
And if we think that something is good, you stand by it, like Putul did, to save the dolphins, and that really works.
That's interesting. So you can, if you have something you believe in, then this is a story where a girl stood up for what she believed in, right? So you should stand up for what you believe in. Wow. That's a big idea.
Sometimes two opposing viewpoints can be right, both right.
Oh man, that is wow. Like seriously, can you believe how many big ideas there are inside of this one little book?
An
Good.
environment.
Oh yeah, well environment also, that's really a good move. Like so actually
Endangered species.
yeah, there's so there's a really important lesson there that we have to live in balance with the environment, right? I mean, and that sometimes the environment can be good and difficult to live with, right? So listen, the big lesson here for me is that in this book there are so many big ideas, and they're all important ideas. The next time you read a book, try to see, maybe you can find more than one big idea. You know? And it could be they're good and bad. Another idea in here could be about friendship, right? It could be Putul was being friendly nice to the Dolphins, right? That's another, I mean, so there are many, many, many ideas. More than one thing, people can have different opinions, I mean, blah, blah, blah. I mean, you get the idea, right? But this is, it's really, I think, really can be very nice for kids to see that. Another thing you could have done would be to say, hey, does anybody know of another book where things are good and bad at the same time? Riddle Man, do you have a book like that?
Well, we've all read Mukund and Riaz, in which there are big ideas like friendship and like I'm stretching here, but Riaz helps Mukund escape, and he lost the friendship, but he was also the very best friend anybody could be to Mukund when he helped him.
Saves his life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In saving his friend's life, he loses his friend because saving him meant helping him go far away.
Wow.
So that was good and bad.
So like seriously, but if you can start, the kids can do this at some point. When they realize that this is what you're supposed to do when you read, they actually start to do it, right? Now the last thing I want to say before we get into these focus groups is that if I were reading this book in English to the members in this library, I would do a very different kind of read aloud. And I would scaffold a lot more. I would tell the story in Hindi, much of it beforehand. I would maybe ask one big question. Much of this, I would do a lot of scaffolding in Hindi beforehand. I would put up some little drawings and pictures, and then I would read it in English with limited translation. But I think that this lesson that I did is really meant for you to sort of translate in your head and do it in a Hindi read aloud, right? You can do this higher level thinking better in the native language of the students because it's hard to think in a language you're not comfortable in.